In the second year of our marriage, Marcus announced that a spiritual master had read his fortune. My luck this year, the master claimed, was abysmal and I was a jinx to him. We needed to live separately temporarily. He then turned around and hired a sweet, charming young assistant, Serena, and moved in with her. Her birth chart, he explained, was auspicious. She would bring him good fortune. And so, he and I drifted further apart while he and Serena grew closer. So close that even when I lay dying in a hospital room, practically next door to where Serena was once treated, he never once came to see me. Only when I was on the verge of death did he finally seem to notice my existence. With my last ounce of strength, I told Marcus that I, too, had consulted a master. This master had told me I'd loved the wrong man, and that I would never want him again, not in this life, not ever. Marcus wept, begging me not to leave, but it was too late. Our journey together had reached its desolate end. There would be no reunion. Today was the first day Marcus had moved out. His company had been performing poorly. He'd sought guidance from a spiritual master, who declared that my luck for the year was dire, actively harming his prospects. So he'd packed his bags overnight and moved into his old apartment in the city center. "Lena, you be good at home, all right? I'll move back in next year," Marcus had said, his voice tinged with a faint sorrow, a reluctance that almost felt real. We had been in love for 4 years, married for 1, and in all that time we had never been apart. My heart twisted into a painful knot. But I couldn't dissuade him. Businessmen, I'd learned, could be deeply superstitious. Staring at the suddenly cavernous, empty apartment, I noticed Marcus had left his laptop behind. I tried calling him, but the line was constantly busy. I decided to drive to his new place. Without his laptop, he wouldn't be able to work from home after hours. As I pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building, I saw his car. He just parked. And there was Serena, beaming, practically skipping towards him as he got out. Serena was his newly hired assistant, a final-year intern. Her family wasn't well off, and she needed the money, so she was interning while studying for her postgraduate entrance exams. Marcus chuckled, reaching out to gently pinch her cheek, a gesture so casually intimate it stole my breath. "I told her the master said she jinxes me," Serena giggled, her voice bright and conspiratorial. She actually believed it. Marcus's voice was low, laced with an amusement that felt like a betrayal. "Don't worry. I'll be with you until your exams are over. With my tutoring, you're guaranteed to pass." An unspeakable coldness seeped into my bones, spreading through my entire body. I couldn't believe it. The man who just yesterday had held me close, begging me to have his child, was now behind my back, shacked up with another woman. The laptop in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy. I wanted to turn to flee, but then my phone rang, a jarring, untimely promotional call that nonetheless startled the blissfully unaware pair. I answered, feigning an urgent need to leave, my voice trembling slightly. Marcus spotted me. He smoothly withdrew his hand from Serena's arm and walked towards me, his expression carefully neutral. "Lena? What are you doing here? It's only been an hour since I left. Miss me already?" Tears welled unbidden. I hadn't intended to cry, but the moment I opened my mouth, no words came out, only a cascade of silent tears. I hastily wiped them away and thrust the laptop at him. "You forgot your laptop at home. I brought it for you. Work well." I turned to leave, but Marcus pulled me into his arms, stroking my back in that familiar, comforting way he always had. "Silly girl, don't overthink things. Serena is just my assistant. You are and always will be the only one I love." I wasn't silly, and I wasn't blind. When we first started dating, Marcus loved to ruffle my hair. He'd even declared that my head was his, and his alone, to touch. Now that proprietary touch was being offered elsewhere. Serena stood by, shoulders hunched, her eyes wide with a carefully constructed fear. "Lena," she stammered, "Marcus and I are living together firstly for work, convenience, and secondly so he can help me with my studies." Her voice was soft, apologetic. "Once I pass my exams and get into graduate school, I'll leave." The words escaped me before I could stop them. "And if you don't pass?" Serena said nothing, but Marcus's face darkened with anger. "Lena, apologize to Serena right now. How can you curse her like that, saying she won't pass?" Serena's tears began to fall then, faster and more copiously than mine. Looking at her, one might have thought she was the one who had been deeply wronged. She sobbed, her voice thick with emotion. "It's okay, Marcus. Lena graduated from a prestigious university. It's perfectly understandable that she'd look down on someone like me, from a third-rate college. My simple, logical question had been twisted into an attack on her academic background. Her university, indeed, seemed an ill match for her remarkably cunning mind. I couldn't stay a moment longer. I knew I was on the verge of collapsing, of screaming. My upbringing, my sense of decorum, wouldn't allow me to descend into a shouting match with Serena, to become the hysterical wife. "Think whatever you want," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "It has nothing to do with me." My gaze swept over them both. "Work hard. Study hard. I hope you both get everything you desire." I turned away, pressing my hand to my mouth to stifle the sobs that threatened to erupt. The moment I was back in my car, I collapsed onto the steering wheel, my body shaking with silent, racking cries. Everyone said Marcus and I were the happiest couple. I too had believed it. Yet, only 2 years into our marriage, his heart had already found a new home. I drove back to our Nomaya house in a daze. The cold emptiness of it mirrored the desolation in my soul. Marcus's departure was premeditated, a carefully orchestrated move. The next step I knew would be divorce. The thought sent a fresh wave of grief so intense I nearly choked. If our relationship had been merely average, perhaps the pain wouldn't be so acute. But we had loved each other so deeply, so fiercely, which made his betrayal utterly unbearable. That evening, as I lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, Marcus unexpectedly returned. I turned my back to him, refusing to meet his eyes. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his touch placating, almost pleading. "Jealous, are we?" he murmured. "The poor girl had nowhere to stay. She's only interning for 6 months. Renting isn't practical. So, I let her stay at my place." He nuzzled my neck. "If you don't believe me, you can come by and check on us any time." He stroked my hair, a light, absent-minded gesture. I flinched and pulled my head away. That habit, once a tender intimacy reserved for me, was now shared with another woman. I wanted no part of it. He seemed to sense my revulsion and released me. He stood in the shadows, his face obscured, his expression unreadable. "Lena," he said, his voice hardening, "I've offered you an olive branch. You're the one refusing to take it." His tone became accusatory. "I thought we had enough trust between us. You need to reflect on your actions. I don't want us to reach a point of no return." Damn these tears. They flowed again, betraying me. I hated myself for crying over a man whose heart had already strayed. "Marcus," I whispered, my voice hoarse, "let's get a divorce." His foot, poised to step out, retreated. A suffocating anger emanated from him, threatening to consume me. He grabbed me, dragged me up, forcing me to look into his eyes, his grip bruising. "We've been through so much together, Lena. All those hard times, we overcame them. My career is just taking off. Why do you want a divorce now?" He was right. When we first graduated, we lived in a squalid basement apartment where rats scurried across our faces at night. On nights when the temperature plunged to 20 below zero, my hands and feet would be blocks of ice, and he would hold me tight, our bodies a desperate source of warmth. We dreamed of a future where we wouldn't need to rely on body heat to survive. We were so poor, so miserable then, but the thought of abandoning each other never once crossed our minds. "Your heart has wavered," I said, my voice flat. "I am no longer your one and only." A flicker of guilt, quickly suppressed, crossed his eyes. I waited for an explanation, an apology, anything, but he said nothing. Instead, he lowered his head and kissed me. My heart died a final, definitive death. Every time he made a mistake, he would try to soothe me with a lingering, passionate kiss. But this time, I wouldn't be placated. I bit down hard on his lip. The salty, metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. He recoiled in pain, finally releasing me. He reached for me again, intent on something more, but a different ringtone, sharp and unfamiliar, pierced the tense silence. He answered it, uttered a curt "wait for me," and hung up. "It's something at the office," he said, his voice strained. "I'll be back in a bit. You wait for me, okay? I'll hold you when I get back." Marcus never came back that night. Around midnight he sent a text. The company website had been hacked. They were patching vulnerabilities. I should go to sleep. A few minutes later, Serena sent me a photo. In it, she and Marcus were huddled close together, their arms pressed tightly against each other, ostensibly working. Her caption read, "Lena, we really are just working." I saved the photo. Then I slept. The next morning, I updated my resume and went out to look for a job. Ever since Marcus's company had started turning a profit, I hadn't worked. He'd sworn he would take care of me for the rest of my life. Before becoming a full-time homemaker, I'd worked for a Fortune 500 company, managing several large-scale projects. My credentials were solid. I received a suitable offer quickly. The HR manager was impressed with my resume and asked me to prepare to start the next day. Finding a job was my first step towards independence from Marcus. I never imagined that as I stepped out of the meeting room, I would collide head-on with him. His eyes, dark and furious, were fixed on the resume in my hand. "You're looking for a job?" His voice was laced with a chilling anger. He snatched the resume from my grasp and tore it into shreds. "Can't I support you? If you need more money, just tell me. You out looking for work? People will think my company is going bankrupt." He berated me, right there in the hallway, with no regard for who might hear. My face burned with humiliation. The HR manager, emerging from her office, finally understood. I was Marcus's wife. Marcus, one of her company's most important clients. Serena, who had materialized beside him, added sweetly, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Lena, you truly don't know how good you have it. If I were Marcus's wife, I'd happily stay home and be taken care of." "Little girl, watch your words," Marcus chided. But even his rebuke of Serena was tinged with an unmistakable indulgence. The unique, all-encompassing adoration he had once promised me was slowly, inexorably being transferred to another woman. I didn't know if he was oblivious to it, or if he knew and simply didn't care, or worse, if it was intentional. My job offer evaporated. Marcus then proceeded to call every relevant company in the city, effectively blacklisting me. But he did find me a new job, being a maid for him and Serena. "Since you're so keen on working," he said, a cruel smirk playing on his lips, "why don't you come over during the day and clean my apartment, then cook us dinner in the evening?" I thought he was joking, but when he handed me a cookbook, I knew he was serious. The recipes were predominantly spicy. Marcus had a sensitive stomach. He never ate spicy food. This cookbook, then, was specifically for Serena. I, a graduate from a top-tier university, the woman who had helped him build more than half of his business from scratch during its initial precarious stages, he had severed all my career prospects, only to offer me the role of his personal maid, a maid who was expected to serve his mistress. I took the cookbook, its pages faintly scented with jasmine, a cheap, cloying fragrance that only a young girl like Serena would use. Marcus visibly relaxed, a sigh of relief escaping him. "That's more like it," he said, patting my shoulder condescendingly. "Women shouldn't be so ambitious." The moment his back was turned, I dropped the cookbook into the nearest trash can. I pulled out a sanitizing wipe and scrubbed at my hands, desperate to remove the lingering offensive scent. Marcus, his face contorted with rage, retrieved the cookbook from the trash and flung it at my face. The sharp corner caught my cheek. "Lena, have I been too lenient with you? You want to work, I find you work. And now you throw another tantrum." Serena, ever the picture of concern, gently tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Marcus, darling, it's all right if Lena doesn't want to cook for me. I can cook for myself. What would you like? I'll make it for you." Her syrupy words successfully diffused Marcus's anger. Once calm, he turned his criticism back to me. "Can't you learn a thing or two from Serena? You're older than her, yet you're so much less sensible." I pressed a hand to my throbbing cheek, struggling to maintain my composure. I knew then that nothing I said could compete with Serena's carefully crafted persona. I grabbed my bag and left. As the elevator descended, I remembered the divorce papers in my bag. I turned back. If I had known what I was about to witness, I would never ever have returned. No matter how many times I had imagined their shamelessness, nothing could have prepared me for the devastating impact of seeing it firsthand. I pushed open the apartment door. Serena's playful, lilting laughter drifted towards me. Then Marcus's voice, husky and strained. "Don't mess around, Serena. You're still young. I'm a married man." My fingers tightened around the divorce papers, the edges biting into my palm. I felt like a thief, a voyeur, peeking into someone else's illicit happiness. "Darling," Serena cooed, "you don't need to feel guilty. I won't force you to take responsibility for me." Marcus's heavy breathing, each ragged inhale and exhale, hammered against my heart. They were embracing, their lips locked, moving slowly, inexorably towards the bedroom. Marcus's back was to me. his entire posture radiating a desperate, impatient hunger. Serena's eyes, however, met mine over his shoulder. Her eyebrows arched and a triumphant, malicious smile spread across her face. She mouthed two silent words. I won. I placed the divorce papers on the shoe cabinet by the door and quietly pulled it shut behind me. The boy I had loved, the Marcus of my youth, was lost, scattered to an unknown wind. I stumbled out into a raging storm, the wind and rain lashing at my face. But the tempest raging within my soul was far more violent. I saw passers-by staring at me with strange, pitying looks. I must have looked utterly wretched. And then I knew no more. When I awoke, I was in a hospital. A kind stranger had found me collapsed on the street and brought me here. The doctor informed me I was ill. Terminally ill. Late-stage cervical cancer. The stark, cruel words on the diagnosis report swam before my eyes. My life was ending. I stared blankly at the pristine white ceiling. What a failure I was. I had helped Marcus build his career, and once he succeeded, he found a new love. Now I was dying, conveniently making way for Serena. Get rich, wife dies. Marcus truly had a charmed life. The doctor advised immediate surgery. It could buy me a few more years. I called Marcus. No answer. I called again and again, but his phone went straight to voicemail, then was switched off. I sat by the hospital bed, watching the sun slowly rise, then begin its slow descent westward. Finally Marcus called. I fell asleep last night, didn't hear your calls, he said, his voice brisk, devoid of warmth. Come over later and clean the apartment. For lunch, make Szechuan boiled beef and stir-fried shrimp with cucumber. Get here as soon as you can. Serena and I have work to do this afternoon. I hung up. I checked myself out of the hospital. Dying sooner or later, it was all the same. I might as well die comfortably. I refused chemotherapy. I wouldn't become a hideous, ravaged version of myself. I didn't go home. I went straight to a cemetery. I wanted to choose a spot for myself, somewhere sunny with flowers. I also wanted to vet the neighbors. I hoped to find a plot surrounded by a younger crowd. All my life I had revolved around Marcus. I had no friends left. Perhaps in death I could make a few so I wouldn't be so lonely. The sales agent asked if I was pre-booking for an elderly relative. I shook my head. It's for me. I was afraid Marcus would choose a place I disliked. Besides, I had no intention of being buried with him. I never knew Marcus had such an extensive network. I was just about to sign the contract when he burst in, breathless and furious. Serena, her face flushed, trailed behind him. He snatched the contract from my hand and ripped it to shreds. I merely asked you to clean and cook, and now you're threatening to kill yourself? He snarled, his eyes blazing. Do you even dare to die? You who's afraid of needles. Suicide is impossible for you. So, he thought I was buying a burial plot as a suicide threat. If only I still had that much control over my own life. He continued to berate me, his voice rising. I never knew you were so unreasonable, so dramatic. Have I made your life too comfortable? Giving you too much idle time to stir up trouble? I turned to the sales agent. I've already paid. Please prepare another contract. The agent looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, my boss. He's already refunded the money to Mr. Chun. We can't sell you a plot. No burial plot? A sea burial would do then. I tried to walk past Marcus, but he exchanged a quick word with the cemetery owner and then followed me. Lena, he said, a smug, knowing look on his face. I've canceled all your cards. Have a taste of what it's like to be penniless. That should clear your head of these ridiculous notions. I stopped. He looked triumphant. Finally willing to talk to me? You're no different from those other women who throw themselves at me, only after money. Tears streamed down my face. Had he forgotten our days in the basement? If I were after money, I could have made countless other choices, any of which would have been better than him at that time. Before, if he wanted to cancel my cards, it wouldn't have mattered. But now, I needed money for painkillers. The doctor had warned me that as the cancer progressed, the pain would become excruciating, manageable. Only with strong medication. I had already had a taste of that agony in recent days. I also wanted to arrange my own funeral. I wanted to leave this world with dignity, hoping for a better reincarnation. I'm sick, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I need money for treatment. Marcus's smirk vanished, replaced by a cold, scrutinizing gaze. What now? Your suicide ploy failed, so you're feigning illness to get my attention. His voice was laced with contempt. Everyone knows you're as strong as an ox. Remember that winter 20 degrees below zero? You were washing my clothes, bringing me meals in the middle of the night. As he said this, he faltered. A flicker of something, memory? Regret? Crossed his face. His tone softened almost imperceptibly. I know I've been busy lately, neglected you. Come on, I'll go home and spend the evening with you. Serena, alarmed, interjected. Marcus, darling, don't forget Mr. Zhao's dinner party tonight. He's going to introduce you to some very important people. Marcus snapped at her, his patience gone. Cancel it. Nothing is more important than my wife. Serena's eyes reddened. She followed him, her voice laced with resentment. You'll regret this if you don't go. Marcus bundled me into the car, leaving Serena standing forlornly at the cemetery gate. It's getting dark, I murmured. What will she do if you leave her here? He reverted to his old, affectionate persona, his voice gentle as he spoke to me. Don't worry about her. She's been getting a little too big for her britches lately. I just need to knock her down a peg or two. We returned to the home Marcus and I had once shared. It felt cold, desolate, haunted by memories. Marcus put on an apron and busied himself in the kitchen. A little while later, he emerged with a bowl of plain noodles. Your favorite, he said, placing it in front of me. My special noodles. Eat up while it's hot. I shook my head. I had no appetite, no desire for food. Marcus sighed. Serena and I. It's just a professional relationship. If you're unhappy, I'll have her move out tomorrow. I clutched my stomach, my fingers digging into the edge of the table. The familiar searing pain was back. Marcus, seeing my distress, brought me a glass of warm brown sugar water. Is it your period? He asked, his voice softening. Drink this, it'll warm you up. I sipped the sweet, warm liquid. The sky outside grew darker. Marcus paced the room restlessly, his gaze repeatedly flicking towards the window. I knew he was worried about Serena, but what did that have to do with me? My earlier concern for her, leaving her at the cemetery, had been an act of foolish, misplaced empathy. Finally, his phone rang. He snatched it up, answering instantly. Without a word of explanation to me, he rushed out of the apartment. So, abandoning Serena at the cemetery was just another act for my benefit. Such brilliant theatrics. I took out my painkillers and swallowed them. The pain subsided, but I knew the cancer cells were multiplying, feasting on me. I lay down and had just drifted off to sleep when Marcus called. He demanded I immediately buy some hospital essentials and bring them to the emergency room. Serena had fallen. She had a ruptured ovarian cyst. I hung up and went back to sleep. I was a patient too. Who was there to take care of me? But I hadn't slept for long when Marcus himself stormed back into the apartment, yanking me out of bed. Lena, there's a limit to your tantrums, he roared. Serena has a ruptured cyst. She's in surgery right now. Get dressed and come with me. You're a woman. It'll be more convenient for you to look after her. Marcus, don't push me too far. I cried, my voice raw with pain and fury. I'm sick too. Late-stage cervical cancer. He slapped me. Hard. The force of it sent my head reeling. I stared at him, my eyes wide with disbelief, hot tears splashing onto the floor. It was the first time he had ever hit me. And it was for another woman. A flicker of panic crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by a cold resolve. Even with illness you have to compete with. Serena, she has a ruptured cyst, so you claim cervical cancer? Do you think having a more serious illness makes you the winner? He forcibly dragged me into the car. The usual 30-minute drive to the hospital took him only 10. His driving reckless and aggressive. The light above the operating room was still on. A nurse I knew greeted me, asking why I had discontinued my treatment. No money, I said curtly, and she tactfully withdrew. Marcus looked at me, puzzled. How do you know the nurses in gynecology? Did you meet them when you came for period pain before? I rummaged through my bag. My diagnosis report was gone, lost somewhere. I looked directly into Marcus's eyes, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. I have cervical cancer, but I don't want treatment. Chemotherapy is too ugly. Marcus struggled to control his rage, hissing at me under his breath. Still lying? Look at yourself. Do you look like a patient? His voice rose. What do I have to do for you to believe that Serena and I are innocent? There's a time and place for jealousy, Lena. I laughed, a hollow, mirthless sound. I had no credibility left with him. I stood up and started to walk away. Where are you going? He demanded. To the restroom. I collapsed on the cold tiles of the restroom floor. This time the doctors insisted I stay. There was still hope, they said. I could live for a few more years if I underwent aggressive treatment. My phone was filled with Marcus's missed calls and a barrage of increasingly vicious text messages. Not answering your phone. Are you actually dead? If you have the guts, never show your face to me again. If you keep this up, then let's get a divorce. I watched Marcus pace back and forth past my hospital room door countless times. If only he'd spared a single glance inside, he would have seen me. Gossip travels fast in a hospital. I soon learned the truth about Serena's ruptured cyst. It had been caused by Marcus's excessive force during sex. That day, Serena had waited for him at the cemetery gate for hours. Terrified and alone as darkness fell, she'd cried. Others offered her a ride back to the city, but she refused, insisting on waiting for Marcus. When he finally didn't call, she broke down and called him. He arrived quickly. To placate her, he'd taken her in the car. Perhaps it was the heightened excitement, but Serena started experiencing abdominal pain. Initially, neither of them thought much of it, until the pain became unbearable and she fainted. By the time she reached the hospital, she was in shock. This was pieced together from the chattering of an older woman in a nearby bed, a notorious gossip, and my own deductions. It was likely close to the truth. The story spread like wildfire through the ward. The old woman chuckled, remarking that Marcus looked like a vigorous man, and his wife must be very happy. Vigorous, yes. Happy, hardly. He hadn't touched me in a very long time. As I pondered this, it dawned on me. When they spoke of Marcus's wife, they meant Serena. I was already at rock bottom. A small act of revenge wouldn't hurt. So I recounted with dramatic flair the story of Marcus having a wife and Serena knowingly being the other woman. Everyone quickly understood. It's always more exciting when it's not your own wife. The gossip soon reached Marcus's ears. He followed the trail of whispers and found my hospital room. He burst in, roaring at the occupied beds. Who's spreading rumors about me and my girlfriend? Have the guts to stand up and say it to my face. I pulled the blanket over my head. I wanted to see his expression when he finally saw me. The blanket was ripped off and thrown to the floor. The fury on Marcus's face slowly cracked, morphing into stunned disbelief. Lena? Wife? What are you doing here? Everyone in the room stared at me. So, the subject of days of salacious gossip, the original wife of the scumbag, was me. Marcus picked up the blanket and gently covered me. What illness do you have? The old woman from the next bed interjected sharply. Her own wife has terminal cervical cancer, and he ignores her to run off and care for his mistress. The color drained from Marcus's face. He swayed, then collapsed onto the edge of my bed. He summoned all his strength to shout at the old woman. Shut up. She's perfectly healthy. She would never get cancer. Marcus reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Lena, wife, tell me they're lying, right? How could you possibly have cancer? His voice was choked with a desperate hope. We promised to travel the world together after we retired. I retrieved my latest test results from the drawer and handed them to him, one by one. I told you many times I have cervical cancer. You didn't believe me. See for yourself. Marcus flipped through the reports, his hands trembling more and more violently. Tears streamed down his face, blurring the ink on the pages. The old woman continued her scathing commentary. Scumbag. Crying crocodile tears now. His mistress was hospitalized for half a month, and you didn't even call Lena once. Marcus wiped his tears, his voice thick with sobs. Wife, I'll find the best doctors in the country for you. Don't worry, I'll save you. I promise. Just then, Serena appeared at the doorway. Seeing me, her expression shifted from surprise to a flicker of unconcealed joy. Lena, what kind of illness is this? I smiled, a thin, humorless curve of my lips. Congratulations, Serena. You'll soon be official. I'm dying. Serena blinked hard, probably trying to squeeze out a tear or two, but she was too overjoyed. None came. Lena, how can you think of me that way? Marcus and I are just colleagues. Marcus grabbed Serena by the collar and dragged her out of the room. Her shrill screams echoed down the hallway. She hadn't expected the man who had been so tender with her just moments before to transform into such a terrifying brute. Get out, he roared at her. And never appear in front of Lena again. You're not fit to touch even a strand of her hair. The old woman helped me out of bed. We went to the doorway to watch the unfolding drama. Serena, her body limp as if boneless, clung to Marcus weeping. "Marcus, darling, what's wrong? Is Lena jealous again?" "I don't mind." Marcus rolled up his sleeves, drew back his arm, and slapped Serena with all his might, sending her sprawling. "Shut your mouth. I've had enough of your manipulative, saccharine talk." His voice was venomous. "If you slander Lena one more time, I'll make sure you never speak again." Serena sat on the floor, stunned, probably dazed by the force of the blow. After a minute, she recovered, and a piercing shriek erupted from her. "Marcus, you hit me. You ruptured my ovarian cyst. I almost died on the operating table. How dare you treat me like this?" Marcus looked at me, his eyes wide with panic, and stammered an incoherent explanation. It was her. She seduced me. I never meant to touch her at first." Serena scrambled to her feet and rushed towards me, pointing an accusing finger at Marcus. "Lena, do you think Marcus is some saint? I just beckoned and he came running. So what if I seduced him first? If he hadn't been willing, I wouldn't have succeeded." On this point I agreed. Flies are only drawn to what's already rotting. "Marcus," I said, my voice weary, "take Serena and go. I can take care of myself. I'll finalize the divorce procedures before I die. I don't want to be buried with you." Marcus reached out to me, his lips moving but no words came out. He sank to his knees before me, shaking his head, his mouth pressed into a thin, desperate line. "The first time you were with Serena," I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "I was standing right behind you watching. Did you know that?" I paused, letting the words sink in. "From that moment on, I stopped loving you." The light in Marcus's eyes slowly dimmed. He knew. He knew about my intolerance for any hint of infidelity. "Wife," he pleaded, "I'll get rid of Serena right now. I promise she'll never appear before you again in this lifetime." What did that have to do with me? Whether Serena stayed or left was their business. Serena was discharged. Marcus moved into my hospital room, becoming my round-the-clock caregiver. I never knew he was capable of tending to someone, and he did it surprisingly well. The doctor said the cancer cells had metastasized. The pain was so intense now that I walked with a pronounced limp. I still wanted to buy that burial plot. Marcus accompanied me to the cemetery, to the very spot I had chosen before. He begged me, his voice raw with desperation. "Wife, please, let's get a double plot. When my time comes, we can be buried together." I shook my head vehemently. In life he had broken my heart. I wouldn't allow him to disturb my peace in death. "You're still young," I said. "You'll find a new love. If we're buried together, what about her?" The pain in Marcus's eyes was so profound, so bottomless, that for a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of pity for him. I quickly banished the unwelcome thought. His current misery was entirely of his own making. He looked at me, his gaze solemn. "I will never love anyone else. In this life there is only you." Marcus's promises were as substantial as air. I didn't believe a single punctuation mark. I paid for the plot, signed the contract, and arranged the highest-spec funeral package for myself, even hiring professional mourners. I had no children, no loving husband left. I had to entrust strangers to see me off on my final journey. I also arranged for 60 years of paper money burning services. On Qingming Festival, the Ghost Festival, and New Year's Eve, the cemetery would burn offerings for me. Everything was arranged. I could die without any lingering worries. Marcus gently held my hand, now skeletal, just skin and bones. "You still don't believe me?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Why entrust all your final arrangements to others? I'm your husband. We promise to support each other, for better or worse, for a lifetime." I despised Marcus's current display of deep affection. It felt as false, as hypocritical, as the farmer in the fable of the snake. "If, when I first fell ill, you had believed me, if you had been there to see me through treatment, I would have fought," I said, my voice weak but firm. "I would have endured the pain and ugliness of chemotherapy, just to extend my life, to spend more time with you." I slowly, deliberately, pried his fingers from mine. "But you were too busy with Serena, cooing sweet nothings, all while lying to me that your relationship was purely professional. For her slightest whim you repeatedly pushed me away, even when I was gravely ill." Each word was a heavy stone. Every single one of these betrayals is enough to make me hate you for a very, very long time. Marcus stood before my chosen grave. his face a mess of tears and snot. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry with such raw, unbridled pain. Regret? Perhaps. But when people make mistakes, they must pay the price. My periods of lucidity grew shorter. I started seeing my parents, my grandparents. They sat by my bedside, watching over me, chiding me for not taking better care of myself, lamenting that I had encountered such a scumbag. If I'd had foresight, if I'd known Marcus's love had a shelf life of only 1 year after marriage, I would have cut my losses immediately. But there are no if-onlys in this world. The doctor said I should prepare for the end. It would be within days. Marcus stopped sleeping, staying awake through the long nights. His eyes were sunken, his face stubbled and gaunt. He drank cup after cup of coffee, terrified that if he closed his eyes, I would be gone when he awoke. I drifted off again. In my days I saw Serena, bloodied and accusing, standing before me, demanding to know why I had let Marcus kill her. When I woke I asked Marcus, "Did you kill Serena?" A chilling, almost triumphant smile stretched Marcus's lips. "If she hadn't deliberately seduced me, your health wouldn't have deteriorated so badly." I looked it up. Cervical cancer is often linked to emotional distress. His voice was low and tense. "You're dying. She doesn't deserve to live. I'm making her atone for what she did to you." Even on the day I had witnessed Marcus and Serena together with my own eyes, I hadn't felt such a surge of pure, unadulterated anger. How utterly arrogant, how conceited must he be, to believe that all blame lay with others. "Wasn't it you?" I rasped. "A married man who accepted her advances, thereby triggering this whole catastrophe? Don't you realize that you are the epicenter of this wrongness?" The color drained from Marcus's face. His eyes filled with a desperate fear. He whispered, his voice hoarse. "No, it's not like that. I've only ever loved you. I just had a momentary lapse." I fumbled for my phone. "Will you turn yourself in, or shall I call the police for you?" Tears welled in Marcus's eyes. He looked at me, and then a strange, broken laugh escaped him. "I dared to kill for you, yet even at death's door you refused to forgive me. How much do you truly hate me?" I showed him the chat log on my phone. I found a master online. He read my fortune. He said I loved the wrong person from the very beginning. He told me to open my eyes wide when choosing a husband in my next life. Marcus snatched my phone and smashed it against the wall, shattering it into pieces. "What master? They're all frauds. We are a match made in heaven. We are the happiest couple in the world." He fell to his knees, clutching at my blanket. "Lena, please, I beg you, don't leave me. Don't say you don't want me." I looked at the shattered remains of my phone. Let it be a funeral offering for me. A wave of irritation washed over me. I never knew Marcus could be so gratingly noisy. "Wasn't it your master who told you my luck was bad this year, that I jinxed you?" I shot back, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Why is my master suddenly a fraud?" Marcus froze. His head drooped, his shoulders began to shake violently. He buried his face between his knees, tearing at his hair, a low, animalistic whimper escaping his lips. "I'm sorry," he choked out, his voice muffled. "I lied. I was afraid you wouldn't let me live with Serena. That's why I said those things." His voice rose to a despairing cry. "I admit it. I was tempted. I'm the one who deserves to die. Let God punish me. So tired. I was so incredibly tired. My short life, devoid of joy, filled only with sorrow." I closed my eyes, offering Marcus one last sentence. "After I die, don't disturb me." The heart monitor flatlined. Finally, release. Marcus held my lifeless body tightly, his agonizing cries attracting doctors and nurses. They removed the machines, the tubes, the remnants of a life support that had failed. Serena's ghostly form shimmered beside me. She huffed. "He deserved it. A man with a fickle heart gets nothing in the end." A small, sharp smile. "Don't worry, he'll be seeing you soon enough. You can have your revenge then." Marcus, true to my final wishes, arranged my funeral. The burial plot I'd chosen was perfect. My neighbors were all young, lively spirits chattering away. A week after my death, Marcus came. I knew he wouldn't want to live. His grave was at the highest point of the cemetery. I couldn't see him, but he could see me. After settling my affairs, he'd called the police, told them where to find Serena's body, and then he'd taken his own life. If only he had known then what he knew at the end. A life built on mistakes. One wrong step, leading to another and another into an abyss from which there was no return.